Hi, I'm Seth Grant with Sailrite, and in today's tutorial video, we're going to show you how to make a slip cover for either a square or rectangular cushion. Let's get started. Slip covers are usually made for cushions that are already covered, just like this one. This is an outdoor cushion, and I created a slip cover in the same material that goes right over the top. But this actually works really well for cushions that are not even covered or just foam. It does leave the bottom exposed, but as you can see, it looks great with just this slip cover on it. But we wouldn't recommend just the slip cover for outside because it doesn't have a bottom. So this would be recommended for inside uses like window seats or any other cushion you'd have around the house, but I would not put this outside.
In this first chapter, we'll be measuring our foam and calculating the fabric required.
If you're using batting, you're going to want to measure it under compression. So our foam is 4 inches, but as you can see with the batting, it becomes about 4.5 under compression, which is usually half of the thickness of the two pieces of batting. So these are both 1/2 inch. So if I said it's 1 inch total minus 1/2 inch, that's usually what you're going to end up with. So 4.5 inches. So if I were measuring for a cushion that already has a cover on it, I would just measure, making sure it's flat against the table, and this one's about 5 inches in thickness. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to measure your foam size or your cushion size, and ours is 18 inches in depth, and it is 4 inches thick. And I'm going to use my T-square to measure the length, and I have a 30-inch length. So I'm going to plug those numbers into the calculator, and it's going to tell me exactly what size panel and corner notches I need to cut for this cushion.
We've put our measurements in the Sailrite slipcover calculator, and if you scroll down, you can see a list of the materials required and the dimensions for our panel. You can find a link to the calculator in the description below. Coming up, we'll be cutting our fabric to size.
So for this project, we're going to be using Outdura. It's 100% solution dyed acrylic. It has a great feel. It's very UV resistant, stain resistant, and it's great for indoor and outdoor applications. Now, some fabrics do have a right side and a wrong side, and if I look at both of these, it's pretty indistinguishable, but I think this top side that I have up looks better. So this is going to be the outside in my case. I'm going to go ahead and take my hot knife and cut off this selvage edge, because clearly this line right here, this dark blue that you can see, is the selvage edge. So I'm going to just take the hot knife and I'm going to cut right next to this white line. This will leave me with 54 inches still. The selvage edge is not included in the width measurement online. And if you had a natural fabric, you're going to want to use pinking shears or serge the fabric. Otherwise, it's going to unravel when you're putting your cushion together or your slipcover. And the reason I'm hot knifing is that this keeps the edge from unraveling. And we're only going to do a single hem on the bottom side. So this is an important step. Sailrite does offer a nice pair of pinking shears. So this is what you do. You just cut right on your line all the way across the material. Just like that. And there you go. I'm also going to square this bottom edge down here so that I can have 2 straight sides to mark against. And I'll just mark this all the way across and cut it off with a hot knife. And I'm just using a pencil for this. And I'm using the precision cutting foot and blade for hot knife. And this is great because I don't have to have a glass underneath on the table, which makes it super easy to cut long stretches like this. As we discussed earlier, this is going to be our depth or our width, and this is going to be our length, which is the way we arranged on the calculator so that we had the stripes going towards the front of the cushion and the back of the cushion rather than across. And yeah, and I'm going to measure. It says I need 28 inches. So I'm going to mark at 28 inches. And I have the T-square lined up against the bottom edge down there. And I'm going to mark in several places and then strike a line across that is 40 inches in length. So notice the stripes here can actually fall underneath here, and it looks like I'm going to be creating a straight line. So there's my mark for my 28 inches. But if I look down here, I'm on the white. So I'm going to take my hand and I'm actually just going to bump this over until it all looks like it's even, so that I know that I'm cutting on the same stripe across. That way I have a nice straight look when I'm finished. So right there, and mark all the way down to this side, and then I'll cut this out with a hot knife. Now I'm double checking to make sure that it's 28 inches in width all the way across, and I will also check the length. This is important because if you get it a little bit askew, it can cause a few problems when you're sewing the corners together. It's not a big deal if it's a little bit off, but you don't want it too far off. There's my mark right there. And looks like I'm in good shape here. The calculator says each corner notch needs to be 4.75 or 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. So I'll line this up on 4 3/4 this way, 4 3/4 this way, and then I'll strike my lines. And then I'm just going to use this one to cut out all the others. So cut this out with my hot knife. And then I'll show you what I do to use this for the other ones. Pretty simple. Okay, now I'll just flip this around, put this one on there again, line it up with my edges, and just strike a line here, and I'll go all the way around it. And I probably will strike a faint line all the way across so I don't have to use the ruler at all. Just makes it easier. Okay, and I'll cut it out with a hot knife and repeat that same process with the rest of the corners.
In this chapter, we'll be hemming the perimeter.
So I've cut out all of my notches on all 4 corners, and I do want to cut out a small notch here so that when the fabric comes around the bottom, we have a reduction of the amount of fabric so it hugs nice and tight to the bottom. So I'm going to mark this 7/8 inch down right here, and I'm going to put it at an angle coming up towards this way because I'm going to mark 7/8 inch the other direction. And then I will mark this 7/8 inch this way, angling it towards the other mark. And then I'm going to use a hot knife and I'm going to cut this off. And then I'll just use this corner to mark all the other corners. So just like that. And then all I have to do now is take this, stick it on the next corner, strike those 2 little lines at the ends, and then use a hot knife and cut it off again. And then I'll just do that all the way around the perimeter on each one of these corners so that every single one is tapered at the end. And each one of these corner notches right here will be the exact same no matter what size cushion you make, but this notch will change based on the thickness of your foam. This is still the inside surface facing up, and I'm going to use my clear acrylic ruler, and I'm going to mark a line 3/4 inch down on each side all the way across. And this is going to be for a hem for the underside, and this is just a single hem, not a double hem. So just one line at 3/4 inch. And I'll do that on all of these sides. So now I'm going to take 1/4 inch basting tape for canvas and upholstery and apply it right up against this edge all the way down the length on all 4 of these sides. So I'll do it here, over here, obviously and then on the other 2 sides as well. I'm going to make sure it's stuck down well using the Sailrite canvas patterning ruler. And if you were doing this with a cotton material, I would not really recommend sewing through the basting tape. So I would recommend using clips or pins. Pins are probably easier. And I would pin this hem down. But for me, I'm just going to baste. Okay, peel up the transfer paper. And I'm just going to show you this side, and then I'll do all the other ones off camera. And I'm just going to baste starting in the center to that line we struck earlier, all the way down to each end. And then when I'm done basting, I will take the canvas patterning ruler and run it down this edge to make sure it stays in place. I'll do that to all 4 sides. So the reason that we are going to not use basting tape with our cotton fabric is because it will gum up the needle like crazy, and you'll actually probably get some skip stitches. So pins and clips, if you're using a natural fabric, if you're using a synthetic material, basting tape's the way to go. It makes everything way easier.
In this next chapter, we'll be sewing the hems and the corners.
Okay, I'm going to set my stitch length to 4mm in forward and reverse. I'm going to be using a Coats Extra Strong upholstery thread, and I'm going to test my tension here in this scrap fabric. So I'll just sew a little bit so I can see it, and I'm just going to pull it out here. We'll look at it on camera together. It's going to be very hard for you to see, and me. Blends in very nicely. But it actually looks like it's buried properly. So what you want is you want the knot to be buried between the two layers of fabric, and if it's not, you want it to be a little bit more towards the bottom side, not the side that you see. And I think I need a little bit less tension here because it looks like it's coming a little bit to the top. So that's one full revolution, and I'm going to try one more time. And if it's buried in the middle, a little bit towards the bottom, I will start sewing the project. Okay, I'm going to use the right side of the center foot as my guide, right up against this outside edge. I will put it down. I'm going to do some reversing here. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way. Do some reversing here at the beginning. Then I'll just sew all the way down this side. And if it is a little off, that's okay, but you want to try to keep it as consistent as possible. This is on the bottom side, so you're not going to see it. I'll just sew all the way down this length. Do some reversing when I get to the end, and I'll do this on all 4 of the sides. It's pretty easy. With light fabrics, you may notice that your needle is gumming up when sewing through the basting tape. You can use some alcohol to clean it off. I just pulled a little bit of it off here, and you'd want to do that if you have it. If you see basting tape on there, you're going to want to clean it before your next run, or else it is going to cause problems. Okay, here's what it looks like after it's sewn. This is the underside. This is the outside. And our next step is going to be to take it to the machine and take the corners and sew the corners together with outside surfaces facing one another, matching up those edges, so a 1/2 inch down each edge. And then you're going to turn at this corner and sew down to the bottom edge. So you'll turn when you hit that point and sew down this way. That way you can suck in the fabric a little bit. Make sure it's outside surfaces facing each other. It's very important. So you can see the raw end of the hem is up towards me, and the outside surfaces are facing one another. And then I'll just put this in on the 1/2 inch mark. You could use a magnetic sewing guide if you want for this, just so you keep it as a 1/2 inch, or you can just sew it. I'm going to do some reversing here at the beginning. Not using any basting tape for this because it's very simple and easy to sew these. And I'll just sew down here. When I come up to this corner, I'm going to stop right when I'm like across from that corner. So probably another 1/2 stitch. I'm going to use the reverse lever to do about a 1/2 stitch here. Okay, needle buried, coming up a little bit. Lift the foot, rotate the fabric, and you can see it's at a 1/2 inch. Put the foot down, sew to the end, and do some more reversing. Pretty easy. Okay, and I'll do that at every single one of the corners. Okay, and that's what it looks like right there. Then if you look inside, that's what it's going to look like, just like that. You can see this notch pulls it inward when you get to the bottom of your cushion. So it's going to wrap around that foam beautifully. And now I'll go on to all the other corners doing the same thing.
Adding elastic is next.
Okay, so now it's time for me to determine the size of my elastic for the bottom. I have the foam here, and I'm going to measure 3 inches down both directions. So 3 inches this way, and I'm just marking it with a pencil. And then I'll measure 3 inches this way, like so. Mark that with a pencil. And this helps me determine the angles I need to cut. So I've got my scissors here, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to run this across, and I'm going to mark this at an angle along this edge, and then this at an angle along this edge. Oops, well, apparently I can't mark things the right direction. Okay, and notice it's the inside edge, or the close edge, that's on my marks. So it's not this top edge, it's the bottom edge. Okay, so now I've marked both sides, and I'm going to take my clear acrylic ruler, and I'm going to go a 1/2 inch from that mark on one side, and mark it again. And then this will be my cut points. So I'll cut it here, and I will cut it here. And then I will use this piece to cut 3 more that are the exact same size. Just by putting it on there. Let me see if I can hold it so you can see. I'll just hold it like this. It's a little, let me hold it this way because I can actually cut it. And I will cut it just like that, same size. And I'll cut 4 of those. Okay, and this gives us the stretch factor we want. So you notice I have this over here. And when I stretch this tight, it's just like that. We don't want it to be super tight, because if it's super tight, it looks funny. But if this is like perfect, the perfect amount of stretch. So I made 4 of these, and now it's time for me to mark the location that they go on the actual slipcover. So I'm going to take this, I'll just turn this inside out, use the clear acrylic ruler again, and I'm going to take this from this stitch right here at the end. This is the back side, not the outside. I'm going to mark 3 inches from that stitch, which is right here. And then I'll go over here to the other side and mark 3 inches as well, this direction. And I'm going to do that at each one of these corners, and that'll be the location. Okay, we're back over here at the sewing machine, and you can see my mark is right here. And this is the corner. And I want this to go on facing up towards the top, just like that, with this edge, the shorter edge, facing towards the corner. So you can look at that real fast. Notice how it's positioned. And I'm just going to sew this on right on top of my previous stitches. So just get it under the foot there. And I am going to do some reversing on this, because obviously there's going to be a little bit of stress. So I'm going to reverse here at the beginning. Make sure it's positioned the way I want it. Sew across, and then I'm just going to reverse back across it again so that it has plenty of strength. And there we go. And that's our first side sewn on. Okay, so now I have to put it on this side. So I'm going to feed this behind the machine. And there's my mark there. And I'm going to pull the strap from back here through to the front and put it on in the exact same manner, so that the bottom edge or the shorter edge is right on top of that mark, with this running parallel to our hem. And I'll sew this on in the same manner, doing reversing at the beginning and then reversing back over it as well. If it goes off as far as straight, it's not perfectly straight, it actually doesn't matter. It's totally fine. And this is what it'll look like when it's done, just like this. And we'll repeat this process at every single one of the corners until we have all of the elastic sewn on. Now I'm going to fit the slipcover on and determine whether I need a strap going down the center to pull these sides in. So we'll put it on first. And I'm just going to put it up like this. It's a little easier for me. And just pull these corners over and get them into position. So I'll put this down just so you can see. But I'm just going to position this corner first. Pretty easy to put on, especially if it's up like this. For me, it's a lot easier if it's up here. There, and that's a good start for this side. Let's go back to the other side. And I'll make those look way better once I get this side on. Okay, and obviously it looks like needs to go a little bit farther into these corners down here. Just keep working it around the perimeter, just like you would a standard cushion. Make sure your corners are hitting the corners. See how that looks nice now? Looks like this needs to come up a little bit to allow for this side to move over, because you notice this side's down farther. It's all about just getting it positioned so that it's in the center of the slipcover. Okay, there, now it's starting to come up the sides. Looks like these corners need a little bit more work. Let's look at it from the top real fast. So this corner looks okay. Could move a little bit this direction. This corner definitely needs a little bit of help. Anyway, you get the gist. You just got to adjust it in there so that it looks all nice. So if your cushion is over 25 inches in length, the calculator will give you an extra amount of elastic in case you need a strap going across, but you will need to evaluate whether that's necessary. Like, it looks like it won't, but when I put it down on the table, if you look down here at this bottom edge, you see how this is puffing out like this? That is an indicator that you need a strap that goes across the middle. So we're gonna put that on next.
In this final chapter, we'll be adding an elastic strap across the center and a hook.
So now we're going to install elastic, and in this case, we have it all on the corners, but we also need one in the middle because you can see it's bubbling here. So anytime it bubbles, you're going to want to install one in the center for a shorter cushion. But if you get really long cushions, you're going to end up installing multiple elastic bands across it to make it so you don't have this bubbling effect. And we're going to be using these G-hooks. The design may vary a bit, but the principles are all the same. Okay, so we're going to flip this over, and I'm going to take my elastic, and I'm going to run it across my cushion or the foam, and then I'm going to add an inch to this end. So I'm just going to guess, but you could mark this as well, so I'll just cut it right here. And this extra inch is for the loops we're going to create, so now we have to cut this in half in the center, because we want the G-hook to land here in the center. So I'll fold this in half, just like this. Take my scissors, and just cut this right here. And I'm going to take one end first and slide it through the hook, roll it over, and I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew across this right here.
Okay, I have my G-hook here. I've rolled over the material to create approximately a 1-inch loop. I'll put this foot up against the side of the G-hook. My needle is in the right position, and I'm going to do some reversing back and forth across this, probably in 2 locations. So I'll just go all the way across, and then reverse back a couple times. This just gives it a little bit of strength, and now I'll do it one more time over here, and then I'll show you what's next. So here's the G-hook that we sewed on, and then here is a loop we've sewn, and you need to come a little farther away from this edge, at least a 1/2 inch. A little bit more is easier because you're going to have to slide this over this G-hook, and you want to be able to get it off again. So this is about right. So if you take this, you slide this over this end. As you can see, it is going to go down here like this, and I'm going to sew each side right on top of this stitch for the hem to the inside of this slipcover, and we'll show you that next. And the calculator will provide enough elastic for elastic straps on the bottom side for long cushions that are about every 25 to 30 inches apart. Okay, so now we're going to take our clear acrylic ruler, and I'm going to mark on the center. I know that this is a 30-inch foam, so that means that the center is 15 inches. So I'll just mark here, and then I'll do the same thing on this side, and then I'll take it over to the sewing machine, and I will sew on my elastic with the loops on it. Okay, just going to remove the cover real fast. This will make it, obviously you can't sew it with the cover on. I'm going to move my needle into the center position, and I need to sew with this facing up towards the top. So, and then you see how the raw end is facing up towards me while I'm looking at the bottom. This is the way you want to sew it so that when it comes over the top, that's what you see. Okay. I'm just going to slide this under here, so right on top of that previous stitch, and just do a bunch of reversing right here and center it up on that mark. I'll probably go back over it one more time, and then reverse. There we go. Pull it out. And we're going to do the same thing with the elastic that just has the loop on this side over here. And we'll show you putting it back on. We're done. Okay, now we're ready to put it back onto our foam. So I like to hold it up to put the corners on first. I'll just work these corners so that they're in a pretty good spot. They don't have to be perfect because second go around is when it becomes a lot easier. Just get it on there. And then we'll go to the other end, get these corners in, and then we can straighten it all out and get everything looking nice. I'll show you what the strap does on the bottom. Okay, now we have it all on here and it's all in place, so all the corners look nice. And all you have to do is take this and slide it over your G-hook. And as you can see, if I flip this over now, there is no bubbling right here in this bottom edge. And to remove the G-hook, all you got to do is flip it back over and slide this guy up past that little clip there at the top. And it can be a little difficult, but it's not too bad. Just like that. And that way you can remove the cover anytime you want. And here's a look at our finished rectangular cushion and a square one as well. For a list of the tools and materials used in this project, you can check out the description below. From all of us here at Sailrite, I'm Seth Grant. Thanks for watching.